Hello and welcome back to Umineko. When last we left off, the second Twilight had been discovered, but Battler managed to prove that Canon was not the culprit. At least for that particular situation. With Jessica's death, it became certain that the culprit was hiding somewhere nearby, and that they'd come for our lives if they had a chance. According to Genji-san, when tomorrow morning comes, the boat should arrive. The boat had a radio. We'd probably be able to contact the police directly with that. All of us gathered in the parlor and decided to wait quietly until tomorrow. I proposed that we should search throughout the mansion for clues about the culprit. But Aunt Rosa rejected that, saying that if we managed to corner the culprit, or maybe provoke them, it might lead to a third murder. That was probably the right thing to do. If a bunch of amateurs like us investigated, there's no way we'd find anything. It would be wisest to focus on protecting ourselves without doing anything unnecessary, and leave it to the police, starting tomorrow. We'd been tense at the beginning, but other than Aunt Rosa, most of us had spent all morning watching TV and getting bored, so our sense of danger had faded considerably. When we thought about it, yes, 6 adults certainly had been killed together in the first murder, but that made it seem like some backhanded method like poison had been used. And for the second murder, we figured those two became sacrifices because they'd been unfortunately isolated from the rest of us. From this, it was possible to imagine that the culprit wasn't a large number of adults, and that they wouldn't be capable of killing this large group gathered in the parlor all at once. Right now, in this parlor, there was George Aniki and me, Maria, Aunt Rosa, Genji-san, Goda-san, Shannon-san, Kumasawa-san, and then Dr. Nanjo, for a total of 9 people. Furthermore, Aunt Rosa was even armed with a gun. Surely, with this many people staying in this room, they wouldn't be able to touch us easily. That feeling of security, along with the passage of time, allowed us to recover from the shock of that morning, bit by bit. By the way, lunchtime had just ended for us. However, it had been a canned food lunch, a far cry from the dinner last night that Goda had skillfully made for us. Aunt Rosa also suspected that poison may have been used in the first murder. So we probably couldn't deny the possibility that the culprit had snuck into the kitchen during all that confusion in the morning, and mixed poison in with the ingredients there. Aunt Rosa gave orders to all of us saying that until the police came, we mustn't put anything into our mouths except safe things like canned food. As a cook, Koda-san must have felt very let down. Apparently eager to display his skill anyway, he said he at least wanted to grab some plates and arrange the canned food on them. At first, Aunt Rosa had been reluctant, examining each one of the plates that were brought, but she hadn't been able to find anything to complain about. And Goda's chef-pick canned food lunch combo was born. Goda-san said something about taste being savoured not just with the tongue, but with the eyes as well. I see, it's the same canned food we ate for breakfast, but it feels like something completely different. Ooh, Battler! Look! This is the wolves and sheep puzzle. Ooh. As I was sitting lazily on the sofa, with no desire to watch TV, Maria came over, pulled a picture book out of her handbag and held it out to me. What's that book? Wolves and sheep puzzle. Let's see. Wolves and sheep puzzle. It was a phrase that Aunt Rosa had said this morning when we'd gone to call on Jessica. At the time, I hadn't known what it meant, and right after that was that uproar when Jessica's corpse was found, so I'd forgotten about it completely. The book that Maria held out to me looked like a foreign picture book, or something that had been translated. When I opened it, I realized that it was a book stuffed with riddles. Ooh. So you have a few wolves and a few sheep, okay? The puzzle is how you take them to the other side using one boat. I've heard of games with rules like that. So this is a version with wolves and sheep? It was a very simple puzzle, passed on from long ago. Let's try posing a question. On the right bank, there are 2 wolves and 2 sheep. There's a boat that as many as 2 animals can ride on, and using it, you have to move all 4 of them to the opposite bank. That's the puzzle. There are 2 rules. The first is regarding the boat. Even a single wolf or a single sheep can paddle it, but it can only hold 2 animals. The second rule is regarding the wolves. When they are greater in number than the sheep in any location, they attack the sheep and it's game over. For example, at the start of the game, let's say the 2 sheep get in the boat and go to the other side. Then 1 sheep gets off and the other goes back to the first bank. When it does, there are 2 wolves on the first bank, and a single sheep returns there. When that happens, the number of wolves is greater, so the sheep is attacked and it's game over. On either bank or even the boat, there must never be more wolves than sheep. And you've got to shuttle them all across under these conditions. By the way, the right answer is to move both wolves to the opposite bank in the first turn. Then 1 wolf comes back. On the second turn you move 2 sheep to the opposite bank. Then 1 wolf comes back. Then on the third turn you put that last wolf that was on the right bank on the boat and cross to the opposite bank. And congratulations, transport successful. Partway there may be the same number of wolves and sheep in the boat or on either side, but that isn't a problem. You only lose when the number of wolves is greater. This book uses wolves and sheep as an example, but lots of people probably know of this game using different characters. It looked like Maria wanted to test whether I too could solve the puzzles she knew how to solve. And she kept showing me different pages, saying, solve this one, and this one's hard. So, what was happening when Aunt Rosa first mentioned this puzzle? That's right. When we decided to go and get Jessica, we talked about how many men should go. And Aunt Rosa mentioned the wolves and sheep puzzle, saying we should all go together. Wait a sec. That could only mean one thing. Aunt Rosa was saying that there was a wolf among us. She was thinking that we'd be safe if the number of wolves and sheep was in balance, but that the wolves would bare their fangs if the situation changed. At the time we found our parents' corpses, Aunt Rosa already suspected that the servants might be wolves. She'd sniffed out the possibility that, while she didn't know whether it was all of them or some of them, there were wolves hiding among them. That's no surprise. That murder scene was very elaborate. It's easy to imagine that there were multiple culprits. And because she'd reached that conclusion when we went to Jessica's room and learned that Jessica had been killed after being alone with a servant, Canon, it isn't hard to imagine why Aunt Rosa suspected the servants so persistently. You servants, Goto-san is going to the kitchen to clean the dishes. Just in case, would you please all go with him? My apologies, everyone. Let us go as a group. Shannon, Kumasawa, we are going. Yes, coming. Ho ho ho. Well then, George-san, excuse me for now. Yes. Take care. Aunt Rosa, could I go as well? I'm sorry, but would you remain here, George-kun? There's something I want to talk to you about. Is that so? Sorry, Shannon. Anyway, take care. Don't be alone. Yes, I'm sorry, Dr. Nanjo. I wanted to consult you about something. Yes, what could that be? The servants put the dishes and empty cans on the serving cart and started to head out into the corridor. Behind them, Aunt Rosa was talking to Dr. Nanjo about something in a small voice. Understood. I will go. Yes, I'm counting on you. Dr. Nanjo closed the book he had been reading, rose from the sofa, and followed after the servants. Aunt Rosa stuck her head out into the hallway, and after seeing that they were completely out of sight, she closed the door and spoke. Listen up, everyone. With that, everyone here is an Ashura Miya. Yes, that's true. So you're saying that you've chased out all the wolves, Aunt Rosa? With that one sentence, Aunt Rosa's gaze grew sharp. Apparently, she had picked up on the sarcasm. She laughed lightly. Your mind sure works fast, Battler-kun. I like clever kids. It means there's less to explain. Ooh, Battle is smart? Can you solve this? Page 64 is hard. Ooh. Maria, go watch TV for a bit. Mama wants to talk with Battler-kun and George-kun. Ooh. Aunt Rosa, I heard about the puzzle from Battler-kun. I don't think it's wrong to be on our guards, but I also think there's such a thing as being too suspicious. Whether the real culprit is Beatrice or not, there is reason for us to suspect that the servants are in on it. In the first murder, when Nissan and the others were killed, they were treated very brutally, right? Did that look like something that could have been done alone? Maybe the mystery guest Beatrice-sama worked all night and did it all. And what about the master key and the door to Jessica's room? Isn't that proof that one of the servants was involved? Only the master key could have locked the door to Jessica's room. So we can only suppose that one of the servants did it. No. Wait. Spin the chessboard around. That's strange, Aunt Rosa. After killing Jessica, why would the culprit go to all the trouble of locking the door? The fact that it was locked made it inevitable that the owners of the master keys would be suspected. There was no reason for them to go to all the trouble of locking the door. That's right. It's just as Battler-kun says. There was no need for them to go to all the trouble of making themselves look suspicious. Yes, that's an interesting thought. Of course, I also thought that. If that's the case, then the person who locked it wanted to cast suspicion on the servants and locked it without a master key. But that's impossible, right? That's right. If there existed some trick that could lock that door without a master key, that would make this a great disguise for casting doubt on the servants. If the culprit's goal was for us to isolate ourselves from the group so they could attack us one by one, this trick would also be effective at giving rise to paranoia. But there was no way to lock that door without using a master key. How can you be sure there's no way to lock that door without using a master key? Isn't that a devil's proof, like Rudolph Nissan was talking about earlier? Maybe it was locked by some method we can't think of. Even if we can't think of a way, we can't deny the possibility of some unknown trick being used. That's true too, I guess. So is that it? No smoke without fire again? I don't know the practical details of the trick, but I have a general idea. My apologies, but if we make the assumption that Canon-kun was the culprit, it can be explained extremely easily. Even as to why there was no corpse. Huh? But Canon-kun didn't have a master key, right? Putting aside the other servants, at least Canon-kun shouldn't have been able to lock the door. I see. So that's why you told us to search in the closet and everywhere else right after we entered Jessica's room. Aunt Rosa, your mind works faster than I would have guessed from how you normally act. The brain speed of a little sister is always the big sister's -1. Right now, there's no one I need to worry about offending, which is certainly a relief. George Anarchy realized she was referring to Aunt Ava, and seemed a little uncertain about how he should take that sarcasm. I'm sorry. Could you explain it so even I can understand? Canon-kun's master key was in Jessica-chan's pocket, closed up inside a closed room. After the door was locked, it should have been impossible to put it in her pocket from outside the room, no matter what trick he used. That's not it, Anarchy. If it was done the way Aunt Rosa's thinking of, this trick could only be used by Canon-kun. Plus, the door could be locked without using a key, while the master key was still in Jessica's pocket, and would also result in his corpse disappearing. How? How could he lock the door without a key? It's simple. George-kun, when you return home, you lock the door, right? You twist the knob, click, and you're done, right? Huh? Could it be? No, but... Canon-kun was nowhere to be found. It looks like you've got it, Anarchy. That's what Aunt Rosa was searching that room for. She was searching for Canon-kun, who had locked the door from the inside and stuck the key in Jessica's pocket, before hiding somewhere, waiting for us to walk right past him. It was the simplest kind of closed room trick. It meant him hiding inside the closed room after the murder was committed. Then all he had to do was get out after those who discovered the body left, and the closed room murder would work perfectly. When we searched that room, we didn't find anything. But for all we know, that room might have had a hidden passage that only the servants know about. We don't know where such a thing might have been hidden. But if we assume there was such a passage, we can conclude that it was impossible for everyone but him. Well, about that line of reasoning, I thought of that too at the very beginning. It's the kind of reasoning I hate most, so I wanted to destroy it right at the start. Canon was killed in this room, right? You apparently suspected that Canon was the culprit, so you made me repeat this to destroy that possibility right off the bat. Yes, I understand. So this is what I thought next. I made a theory where there were actually 3 people in that room. Jessica and Canon-kun were victims, and the culprit, the guest Beatrice, was also there with them. You wanted to make it the human me who committed the crime without using magic. I see, a bizarre theory that suits you perfectly. I guessed that you killed those 2, then locked the door from the inside, and that you carried Canon-kun's corpse away using some secret method that normal people wouldn't notice. In other words, you used a secret door to escape. But you told me it in red. You said no kind of hidden door existed in that room. Indeed, there can exist no secret passages that you all are not aware of. Was it Knox who said it, or was it Van Dyne? It seems that in mystery novels, there must never be hidden passages. I simply followed that etiquette. So even without having to thoroughly search the room, a famous detective could conclude that no secret passages exist. Humans playing detective have it so easy. Damn you, talking so big. Thanks. Thanks to the mighty witch being so diplomatic, I get to conclude that the room has no hidden doors without searching the whole thing. Indeed. There are no hidden doors in this room. There is no way to get in or out other than the door and the windows. Which means that the theory Aunt Rosa is so confident in is wrong. Also, annoyingly, it's impossible to disprove her theory. If you, the witch, say, there are no hidden doors, in red, then it's settled. However, no matter how much a human like me tries to argue against her, Aunt Rosa probably won't accept it. Humans can't prove there's no hidden door. It's a devil's proof. Damn. It sure is convenient being a witch. No way. To call Canon-kun the culprit because of a hidden door we don't even know exists? I can't accept that. If you can't accept it, then find me a different theory that's more convincing. There is none. I've been thinking this whole time. There's no other option. George-kun, you and Shannon-chan are close, right? I imagine that's why you find it so hard to accept that all the servants are culprits. Even I don't want to believe that Shannon-chan is in league with the culprit. But whether they're all in it together or not, there's definitely a culprit and maybe an accomplice in that group. That point alone is something you absolutely need to understand. If you guessed that there were wolves besides Canon-kun, does that mean the uproar you caused by accusing Canon-kun in Jessica's room was to gauge the reactions of the other servants? Yes, that's right. And as a result, I began to suspect them even more. There certainly is a wolf among the servants. Certainly. And, just like in the wolves and sheep puzzle, while they may be docile most of the time, they'll surely attack if they get the chance. Jessica-chan was a lone sheep on the boat. In Maria's version of the puzzle, they may not attack when there's an equal number of wolves and sheep, but our puzzle is different. Depending on the situation and the number of people, they'll attack even if there is a balance. Just like when Jessica-chan was killed. Then there's something that makes me mad. If that's true, then when you made Shannon go to the kitchen, you put her in a dangerous situation, didn't you? We should go to the kitchen right now too, no matter who may or may not be a wolf. If staying together means we remain in balance, I think we should keep it that way. Shannon-chan went to see father along with Genji-san. At that time, she was supposedly isolated, but she wasn't killed. Was it because Genji-san wasn't a wolf either? Wrong. It's because they were both wolves. Shannon isn't the kind of person who would take part in a crime. I can't let a comment like that slide, not even from you, Aunt Rosa. I demand that you take back what you just said. I hate saying this in front of Aniki, but the way you're arguing feels just like something Aunt Ava might say. It's like you're automatically assuming that you're right, unless we could counter your argument. Looks like you can't fight against your own blood after all, Aunt Rosa. Even I can't think of myself as very praiseworthy right now. But guess what? I'm a mother. I'd become even a demon to protect Maria's safety. I really wish I could shut myself away somewhere alone with her. But I also plan to act as a mother to you two. Right now, you're practically my children. Even if you aren't my own, I won't forsake you. No matter what. Well, thanks for that. I just wanted to warn you not to be careless, as your mother. Stay where I can see you at all times. I will protect you. And at the same time, you'll be observing us to make sure we aren't wolves. Yeah, thanks a lot for that. Can you, Aunt Rosa, prove that you aren't a wolf yourself? Yes, I can. That's a quick answer. How? With this. This is my proof. Aunt Rosa lifted her gun and pointed the barrel at me. But it was only for an instant. She immediately lowered the gun, laughing impishly. But to me, the time I spent staring down the barrel of that gun felt like an eternity. How does that gun prove you aren't the culprit, Aunt Rosa? Think about it. What if I were the culprit? Would I really give up the once-in-a-lifetime chance I got when the servants left? I could just shoot you, bang, and think of a fitting excuse later. Something like Beatrice appeared outside the window and started shooting at us. I'd just need to leave the 2 empty cartridges on the ground and say I fired back at her twice. Well, that's a crazily violent way to argue it, but it does make sense. There's something Krasny-san used to say all the time long ago. Might is right. Maybe that really is true. I'm sorry, you two. I've somewhat lost my composure after all the crimes since this morning. You know how I normally am, so I must seem desperate and a bit short-tempered right now. But please understand, I want to protect you from a malicious culprit. I will become a demon to do that. That's all there is to it. I'm sorry for saying something that's angered you. Valor-kun, George-kun, let's make up. An unsatisfied expression rose to George Anaki's face. He probably couldn't forgive the damage done to Shannon's honor. What about me? Several bits of circumstantial evidence hinted at the servants' participation. I didn't want to believe that one of them was the culprit, or possibly colluding with the culprit. But in our current situation, that was little more than wishful thinking. Whom should I believe? In the first place, who is the culprit? Are they accomplices? And if so, how many? It seems I've only been suspecting the people we know. I quickly forgot that 19th person. The guest, Beatrice, who arrived yesterday and boldly claimed to be the Golden Witch. In fact, I still haven't seen her face. I heard she greatly resembled the witch in that portrait. But since I haven't seen her directly, no matter how hard I try, it doesn't really feel to me like a 19th person is on this island. So, I've been subconsciously hallucinating that the culprit's one of the 18. Damn it. Come out, Beatrice. If you're the bad guy, then act like the bad guy and show yourself, laughing in a high-pitched voice and mocking us. Just like a bad guy in one of those dramas who, even when they're exposed as the culprit, aggressively says, "Where's your proof?" Where's your proof? Shut up. No more talking. There were 5 humans in the kitchen, but it was very quiet, filled only with the sound of the rain. It was only accented by the sound of Shannon and Kumasawa washing the dishes. Goda was using the leftovers from breakfast and lunch as ingredients for a soup. Rosa had suspected that poison might have been added to the food, so they decided to eat canned goods, but it hadn't been too satisfying. But Goda thought she was being too cautious. So he was spontaneously creating a soup to be served only to those who wanted some. Shannon and Kumasawa were washing the dishes that the food had been arranged on. On the inside, they thought maybe Goda should wash them, since he'd been the one who'd wanted the food arranged on plates in the first place. But they left their complaints unsaid for the time being. Genji and Nanjo were facing each other across a crude chess set that had many years of experience. The game had still only just begun, and because the opening game of these experienced players had been honed to perfection, it looked like a ceremony where they just moved specified pieces in a specified order. That's a nice aroma. You wouldn't get this from canned food. It was made only from sealed ingredients, so there won't be any poison mixed in. I am making enough for everybody, so please, eat. Of course, I will also taste for poison. Please feel secure and eat. That really is a nice aroma. Goda-san, the food you cook really is delicious. Being able to create delicious food when you buy delicious ingredients is hardly special. My master taught me that a true cook needs to perfect their ability to make delicious food from whatever is on hand. That was a good master. Thanks to him, it looks like we'll get to enjoy some truly delicious soup. Although it is a shame that it was made from ingredients intended for all of the family members to eat. I'm sure Rosa-san is tired after everything that happened this morning. It is only natural. But thanks to that, we get to drink some soup made from delicious ingredients. Ho 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 ho. Rosa had fervently warned everyone that they didn't understand the danger they were in, and that they must assume that poison was mixed in with the food. The mood at the time had led them to agree, but hunger wasn't something that could be swayed by a momentary emotion like that. Ironically, we've ended up with a soup that we normally wouldn't be able to savor. If possible, I would like to serve it to everyone in the parlor, but... Seeing that it would violate Rosa-sama's instructions, you had best give up on that idea. It's enough that only those who want to eat it do so. Ho 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 ho. Skillfully taking a breather when no one's looking is also an important skill for a servant, isn't it? When Kumasawa cackled, Shannon and Goda laughed too. It seemed that, in this space where only their fellow servants were gathered, they could relax quite a bit. Shannon didn't like Goda's occasional dishonesty, but she knew that there was no falsehood in his childish smile when he cooked, nor in his desire for people to enjoy his food. So even though it was a little aggravating to be made to wash the dishes, she couldn't really hate him. However, they couldn't have dreamed that Rosa was calling them wolves in the parlor at exactly the same moment they were spending their time peacefully, like this. At that time, several of the servants heard a sound like something being dragged, and then a thump. It seemed like the sound made by a servant outside the back door, when they were carrying a mountain of trash bags on a rainy day. Or maybe when a servant was returning from work wearing a raincoat. So at first, that sound didn't seem like anything out of the ordinary to any of them. But they soon realized, right now, everyone was either in the kitchen or in the parlor. So who could possibly be at the back door? As the servants all looked at each other, they checked to make sure that each one of them knew what that sound meant. Who could it be? The servants knew the mansion's layout well, so they understood how incomprehensible it would be for someone from the parlor to actually go outside in this typhoon, go all the way around, and come up to this back door. Then, was it Kinzo? They couldn't imagine that Kinzo, who never left his study, would dash out into the middle of this typhoon and come to the back of the house, where only low-class people ever entered or exited. That wasn't our imagination, was it? Oh. Shannon and Kumasawa drew close together, fearfully looking at the back door. Who is it? As Goda fearfully approached the back door, he called out, and his eyes flashed toward the butcher's knife that sat in a nearby sink. He didn't pick it up yet, because there was still a possibility that this was a member of the family. However, that possibility was impossible. There was no response from across the door to Goda's initial question. Maybe his voice had been so quiet that it hadn't reached through all the wind and rain outside. Genji-san? Yes. Stand back, Dr. Nanjo and the women. Who in the world could it be? Genji took a knife with a classical design from a stationary box placed near the chess set. It was something to be used instead of a paper knife to open envelopes for statements of delivery and bills. But it was still a knife, so the blade on it could injure someone. Genji hid it in his sleeve with a well-practiced motion. Then he approached the back door himself, giving Goda a silent nod. Goda cautiously approached the back door and slowly started to open it. Why? The shadow of a person suddenly shuffled into sight, landed on its knees, and fell over. Goda fell backwards onto his backside and couldn't get up. That human shadow was soaked with rain, smeared with mud, and drenched with blood. Canon-kun? Canon-kun! Canon, are you alright? Dr. Nanjo. It was Canon. His breath was feeble, and the puddles of mud he left were quickly drenched bright red. When Nanjo held him and turned him face up, there was a deep, gruesome wound right in the center of his chest, as though he'd been stabbed there by a spear or something. Even now, deep red blood poured out from there. This is horrible. What shall we do? Get a first aid kit? A first aid kit? Canon-kun, place your hand against the wound. Please, push firmly. Let's carry him to the bed in the servant room. Everyone, please, lend a hand. Come now, Canon-san. Please, hang in there a little longer. Hang in there. It'll be okay. So don't take your hand from the wound. At any rate, let us carry him to the servant room. Kumasawa, inform Rosa-sama that we have found Canon. Wait, not Rosa-sama. Please wait. Canon-san said not Rosa-sama. What do you mean, Canon-kun? This is no time for that. Let us quickly carry him to the servant room. Kumasawa, do not tell Rosa-sama yet. We will do it after we hear the situation from Canon. Yes. Eek. He had told them not to tell Rosa, right after appearing in this state. This could only mean something very disquieting. An eerie anxiety rose to their faces. Come now, everyone. Let's hurry and carry him. Quickly, quickly. Canon's wound was unbelievably deep, and judging from Nanjo's pale face, it was a miracle that he was still conscious. This is horrible. He appears to have been stabbed by something like a spear. If it hasn't reached the lungs, I might be able to do something. At any rate, we must stop the bleeding. No matter how much Nanjo tried to wipe off that gushing deep red blood, he couldn't do it, he couldn't wipe it all away. And each time, the wound was aggravated, causing Canon to cry in anguish. Canon-kun, Canon-kun, Canon-kun! Hang in there, hang in there! Dr. Nanjo, here's a new towel. How horrible! What is his condition? In all honesty, this is so severe I cannot believe he is alive. Maybe the location of the wound was fortunate, but the blood loss is too horrible. A blood transfusion is necessary, but that will be impossible until tomorrow. Rosa-sama. To us. Don't talk, Canon-kun. Your wound will open. Rosa came to Milady. And me, and... What did you say? Rosa-sama did? Oh, could that mean? Are you certain? Yes, I'm certain. It was Rosa-sama. Come now, don't speak anymore. Kumasawa-san, please grab another first aid kit. Genji-san, is it possible Rosa-sama did such a thing? I do not know. Disregarding Nanjo and Kumasawa, who were struggling hard and stained with blood as they tried to stop the bleeding, Genji and Goda faced each other. Because if what Kanon had said was the truth, Rosa was the culprit who killed Jessica. Curse you, Rosa. How could you do that to Milady? I'll kill you. I will kill you. Ugh! Kanon screamed even more hatefully. His hate-filled voice made it seem like he was seeing Jessica being harmed right before his eyes. Certainly, Rosa-sama may have had a reason to kill Milady. If everyone in the Ashurmiya family were destroyed, the inheritance would all go to Rosa-sama. If so, Battler-sama and George-sama are in danger. Not only is Rosa-sama holding a gun, but right now they're the only ones in the lounge. Genji-san, isn't this situation quite perilous? Shannon suddenly ran out into the corridor. Her expression was complex and tragic, as though she didn't know what to believe. Shannon ran. To where? The inside of the mansion had been scrupulously cleaned, so it probably wouldn't be easy to find. She might find it if she searched the rose garden, but they'd probably all been lost in this wind and rain. That's right. The boiler room isn't cleaned very often. If she went there, she might be able to find it. Shannon ran downstairs to find that in the underground boiler room. Did some medicine take effect at the brink of death? Or was Kanon finally beyond feeling pain? For the time being at least, Kanon's painful gasping had subsided. Nanjo apparently didn't view this as a very good sign, and he didn't let his eyes off Kanon for a second. Kumasawa firmly gripped Kanon's hand and kept encouraging him, so that the willpower keeping him alive didn't fade away. Genji and Goda seemed uncertain how to respond to the truth Kanon had risked his life to deliver. Rosa-sama's gun surely has 4 or 5 shots loaded. That is no small number, but loading cartridges into a Winchester should require a lot of practice. She might be able to get 1 shot off, but if everyone attacks her at once, we should be able to take the gun from her before she shoots again. We may have a doctor on this island, but we have no access to medicine and no hospital. If the location of the shot is bad, that person will die. I understand that, but more importantly, if we don't move quickly, there's a chance another crime will occur. It seems to me that Rosa-sama managed to cleverly chase us out. Maybe George-sama and Battler-sama are being killed right now. Oh, if our foe is so dangerous, wouldn't it be better if we didn't provoke them so much? But tomorrow is still a long way off. We can't even imagine what strategies she might use. Genji-san, we should take action first. If we can at least steal the gun under some pretext, it might work out. There are 4 or 5 cartridges, are there not? That means there aren't enough to kill all of us. As long as we don't carelessly provoke her. Surely even Rosa-sama wouldn't be that rash. No, she said it. She said she'll massacre all of us. Kanon, who they thought was sleeping quietly, suddenly started talking brightly. Almost as though he'd been awake this whole time and had suddenly opened his mouth. Kanon looked firm and steady, which relieved Nanjo a bit, but considering the depth of that wound, he couldn't wipe away a certain creepy feeling. He knew because he was a doctor. After losing so much blood, Kanon might easily have lost consciousness. And yet, somehow, he was still intensely aware of his surroundings. Was it youth? Or was it tenacity? Sometimes, the power of human life surpassed common knowledge. While stopping the bleeding, Nanjo had groped around a bit inside the bleeding hole with tweezers, making sure there were no foreign objects inside the affected area. And the great depth of the wound had shocked him. It had certainly reached as far as his lungs. And yet, no, but the fact that he's still alive is wonderful. But Kanon had spoken clearly. He'd hatefully stated that the one named Rosa made this wound, cursing and raging, over and over and over. She wants to kill everyone by any means necessary before the typhoon passes, so that she can have the master's wealth all to herself. She told me that clearly. Damn! What a person! Genji-san, what should we do? Are there any weapons we can? I find it hard to believe. To think that Rosa-sama would say something like that. Genji-sama, it isn't a question of whether you believe it or not. She told me. I heard it. Why won't you believe me? Don't get up. You'll harm your wound. Kanon sat up on the bed, speaking to Genji, who didn't seem to be willing to believe Kanon's story. She'll definitely kill all of us. She must have killed everyone in the parlor by now. If we don't kill her first, we'll definitely be killed first. Just like how I was killed first, everyone else will also be killed first. Kill or be killed. Kill or be killed, or kill or be killed. Kanon-san, does that really not hurt? Oh, this? This is nothing. What do you mean, it's nothing? It really isn't a big deal. It doesn't even hurt anymore. It's really nothing. As Kanon said that, he began to untie the bandages that had been painstakingly wrapped. The gruesome hole in his chest was immediately exposed. Kanon-san, you mustn't do that. Lie down quickly. I said it's fine. Hey, see? This is nothing, right? Kanon showed off his gaping wound, which was still slowly spitting out foamy blood. Everyone averted their eyes reflexively. Look, I told you it wasn't a serious wound at all. Stop it, you mustn't play with the wound. Come on, see? It isn't a deep wound at all. Look. Kanon held up 2 fingers, showed them to everyone, and slowly started to stick them into the gruesome wound right in the center of his chest. Plunging, slimy, squishy, wet. The fingers went in deep, all the way to their bases. Squish, gloop, bloop. Eeeeh! Kanon-san, stop it! Those fingers were sticking all the way into his chest, up to their bases. And then he slowly pulled them out in exactly the same way. The fingers he pulled out were stained a sticky, solid, deep red color, and there was even a thread hanging. The fingers were covered up to their bases in deep red. You... What in the world? See? It is not a serious wound at all. See? At that moment, the door was slammed open and Shannon appeared. Even after she saw Cannon, stained with fresh blood, her impregnable expression didn't falter. Hey, Nissan, where'd you go? I'm on the verge of death here, so where'd you go? That's right. I went to the boiler room. There was something I had to find. More importantly, there's something I need to ask you. Are you really Cannon-kun? Oh, what? It was only natural. Everyone believed he was Cannon, so they couldn't understand the meaning of Shannon's question. When they looked, they noticed that Shannon was holding a handkerchief in her hand. It was filthy and looked like it had been used to wipe up some trash or dust. And while holding that, she approached Cannon, drawing closer to his feet. What is that? It's a handkerchief with a spider's web wiped onto it. Why would you bring something like that? If you're Cannon-kun, you should be fine. But if spiders are your natural enemy, I thought you might not like it. Are you kidding? Why would I hate spiders? Sorry, I'll try it. Shannon-san. When Shannon brought that handkerchief close to Cannon's thigh, something happened in an instant. It happened all at once. The human eye couldn't have followed it. Cannon jumped like a wild goat, fleeing from the thing Shannon was holding. Then, from his arm, some kind of afterglow flashed purple and drew a curve through space. That arc, which drew 3 beautiful purple curves, traced across the throats of Nanjo and Kumasawa, who had been tending to him. And, in an instant, Nanjo's and Kumasawa's throats opened like gaping mouths, and the blood really started spewing out. The 3rd purple curve should have traced across Shannon's throat, but Shannon wasn't there, because Genji, who had been behind her, had wrapped his own arm around Shannon's neck and pulled her back. This all happened in an instant. In the instant it took Goda to think fast in an attempt to understand this scene, the frozen moment in time shattered. Blood was gushing from Nanjo and Kumasawa's torn open necks. Cannon jumped and kicked off a picture frame that had been hanging on the wall behind him, springing forward just like a cat and aiming for Shannon's throat again. But Cannon's target once again disappeared from in front of him, because Genji had pulled Shannon again, and the 2 of them had fallen to the ground in a defensive crouch. Nice reflexes, you senile old furniture. Goda. Oh! Even Goda was no fool. Even if he couldn't fully understand what was going on, he at least realized that if this cannon wasn't seized, his own life would also be in peril. He sprung at Cannon with his huge body, pushing him up against the wall with all his weight and physical strength. Oh, whoa! Let go, fat ass! Another purple curve was drawn from the tips of the fingers on Cannon's right hand. And when he raised that hand like a sword, aiming for Goda's back, there was a loud thunk, because Cannon's raised hand had been pinned to the wall. He couldn't tear his palm away from the wall. Sticking out from it was the knife Genji had thrown. Under normal circumstances, it would have been surprising to see someone as old as Genji handle a knife so skillfully. But in this abnormal space, no one paid it much mind. "Genji-sama, take this." Indeed. Genji took the handkerchief with the spiderweb stuck to it from Shannon, and he approached Kanon, who was pinned to the wall by Goda's massive body and the knife. "Stop it! Keep that away from me! Stop it! Stop! Yeah!" When Genji pushed the handkerchief up against Kanon's face, there was a sound just like setting meat on a red-hot iron plate. Of course, the smell was the same too. As he was horribly burned, festering in filthy red and black, and crying out in his death throes, Kanon's body burst open and scattered. It was almost as though a balloon filled with gold leaf had popped. The entire servant room was completely buried under a storm of gold leaf. No, a cloud of gold butterflies. Those butterflies began to softly fade, as though into water, or rather, into the empty air itself. And afterwards, all that was left was the 3 survivors sitting on their butts, stained with blood. However, not everyone was merely stained with blood. Some of them were lying on the ground, spreading out blood themselves. Kumasawa. Dr. Nanjo. Slits so sharp they looked like they'd cut your finger if you touched them opened wide, and large amounts of blood kept pouring out. What was that just now? Goda, have you been injured? I am fine. But what did we just see? What happened? I know I pushed that thing against the wall with my own hand, but even I cannot understand what happened. Goda looked at his own hand. The bright red blood left from his scuffle with Kanon definitely remained. And yet, Kanon was nowhere to be seen, because he had disappeared. He had transformed into gold butterflies and scattered. Goda kept screaming alone without a clue about what was going on. Oh, we get a little profile update. Kanon has not updated. Nanjo died in the servant room, his throat sliced open by a sharp blade or something similar. However, this alone isn't enough. And Kumasawa has the same, except the finishing touches are yet to come. What could that mean? Let's look at Jessica's. Yes. Shannon sobbed in front of Nanjo's and Kumasawa's remains, as Genji watched over her, silent as always. And I think that's going to do it. Shit's popping off. Some very magical shit. And next time, I suspect we're going to get some investigation of the remains of that whole scene. But until then, this is literally almost a perfect hour, so... we'll save that for the next video. Thank you for watching.